Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach. Who here is a horror movie fan? Nah, not so much, but I make you bet some of you are action movie fans, correct?
Yes.
Absolutely. And there's something in common between most action movies and horror movies, which is it's never over until it's over. Right? How many times have you seen in a movie where you think the heroes have defeated the enemy, and then as everybody is celebrating, rejoicing, there in the background, they come lurching back onto the screen, and you realize they're still a menace. Time and time again, just when you think you've escaped, suddenly that hand from the Terminator, the alien leaps out, and you're back into another 15 minutes of action. Pesach is very much like that. Just when you think it's over, boom, another 2 days of the Chag, another 2 more days of celebration. Now, of course, the celebration is meant to be rejoiceful, but I know for many people, Passover can sometimes be a little challenging. Once you get to the basic pattern of eating a nice balanced meal, it works out okay, but I know that for many of us, Passover was such an alarming change that these last 2 days of celebrations just seem to, fly up into the air and attack us. But of course, that is very much in keeping with the story of the Exodus. If you were either here or listening to the live stream or perhaps reading on your own from this morning's Torah reading, you'll know that while it starts with our Exodus out of Egypt, the main event of the reading is, of course, Shirat Hayam, the Song of the Sea, our parting of the sea and our final exit. And why was that needed? Because just when you thought you were safe from Pharaoh, here he comes charging after you with the chariots. Yes, you know he said you could go, but now as you are standing at the edge of the river, the chariots are coming behind. It is the moment of climax, of panic, and of course the waters part and we escape and they drown. Good. That's how the action movie happens. We roll credits, although of course the Torah reading, as a little aside, doesn't roll credits there. It immediately tells us that after that great miracle, the people begin complaining about the water, which is very important to realize that we're not going to have just roll credits at that moment. We need a real world. More about that in our discussion tomorrow. But this is also very much in keeping with the theme of redemption. Think for a moment about the 4 different promises of redemption, and I'll refer you to some of the teachings of our commentators that point out that the first promise of redemption was actually fulfilled while we were in Egypt. That Pharaoh did, as part of the negotiations, lighten our burden so that we were not quite as enslaved, harshly, as we had been. Was that good enough? No. So he lightened it further to the point that our primary duties were no longer onerous at all, but we were still unable to leave the country, to go and be our own people. Was that good enough? No. But then he finally said we could go. But that is only the 3rd promise of redemption. And as Or HaChaim, one of the great commentators, points out, even that promise wasn't fulfilled until we were on the other side of the sea. Because as long as we were on this side, we weren't completely free. That for someone to be free, they can no longer be pursued. That somebody who is in the state of being pursued, even if they are not caught yet, that doesn't count as free. I think most of you would agree that if you were on the road and driving and you knew there was someone chasing after you with ill intent, you probably wouldn't consider yourself to be at ease. You probably wouldn't consider yourself to have escaped until they were actually gone and no longer pursuing you. And indeed, this is what our sages say. It wasn't until we crossed that sea and Egypt was no longer a danger that we could truly have that experience of freedom. This teaching, of course, is then echoed in the readings that we will do tomorrow. In tomorrow's reading, we'll not only have one of the many summaries of the different holidays in Jewish tradition, but the Torah will also introduce that section by going through a very lengthy discussion of the laws of Shemitah and the laws of remission of debts, of helping the poor, of being sure that we are taking care of others in our society. And this is for that same reason. We know that a person cannot be truly free if they are burdened by all of the fears and all of the pressures that come from being poor or disadvantaged within society. A person cannot truly say that they are a free person if they are being pursued by unscrupulous debt collectors, if they are being pressured over medical bills that they need to maintain in order to maintain their health, if they are being held captive in work where they find no satisfaction but with a boss that treats them badly. That is not a full measure of freedom. And Judaism tells us that it is the obligation of the community to provide for all members so that they truly can be free. This notion of the remission of debts and the freeing of those who had been indentured servants as part of the Shemitah and then also the Yovel, the Jubilee period, is an intrinsic part of how Judaism measures human dignity. That all people truly are born free, and although circumstances may sometimes harm them, limit them, hold them back, we need to find ways to break those chains and let them move to that final stage of escape beyond pursuit, across the sea, in order to truly be free. It's not enough to merely reduce the burden a little. We have to get them out. Of course, how do we do that? Well, that is the fourth measure of redemption, which is to reach the foot of Mount Sinai, to receive Torah, and to use the mitzvot, the commandments in the Torah, to guide ourselves and our society to achieve that. It is not something that we just hope and pray for. It is something that we use the commandments as our building blocks in order to be sure that we are taking care of each other, whether it be in our family, our community, or our country. As we celebrate this holiday of freedom, this Zman Chirutenu, this time of our liberation, let us be sure that we are trying to achieve for ourselves and for everyone else that full measure of freedom and bring everybody across the sea to the other side. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach.